Hey guys, good morning, good evening, good afternoon. Welcome to Psychology MasterClass lesson number 6, manifestation. This is going to be a good lesson. This is going to be a cool one. So for those who are live in the room, give me a Y if you can hear me, if you can see me, and then we're going to get started in a couple of minutes. Awesome, good stuff, good stuff, good stuff. So I have a bunch of cool topics to talk about, and before we get started in a minute or so, if you guys have any questions, anything that you want me to cover, any comments or anything like that, feel free to take the next minute and just drop it into the chat, or at any time during the webinar, feel free to do so, and I'll make sure to cover it. But yeah, this is going to be a good one. It's going to be a cool webinar. This is where we start taking everything that we have learned and starting putting it together. Awesome, guys. Awesome. Cool, cool, cool. All right, so let's get started. And what we're talking about today is what happens after the meditation, because we talked about how, let me give you a quick summary. So the first process, the first part, let me actually go kind of like step by step. The first part of manifestation is obviously knowing what the hell you want, right? Because if your mind is clouded, meaning you want this and then you want that and then you want this and then you want that, your manifestations are not going to come true because you're constantly jumping back and forth. So the first thing of manifestation is you have to know what it is that you truly want, right? What are you trying to manifest? That's why I look at the lifestyle itself, because the lifestyle I know I want, whether it be a Ferrari or a Lamborghini or a Tesla or any other car, that might change, but the lifestyle, that's what I want. So that's an easy visualization, right? That's an easy manifestation because I know that that's how I want to live my life. So at the end of the day, the first part of successful manifestation is really knowing what it is that you want. The small little finer details, that's going to change, right? The overall general picture of what it is that you're trying to achieve with your life, right? That's still going to evolve. But at least in the short term, you know what you want, you know where you want to go, and that's where I focus my attention, is that next lifestyle, right? So I like to manifest lifestyles rather than just items, because I know that those items eventually do come with the lifestyle itself, So when I plan to do a visualization or manifestation, I visualize the lifestyle that I want to achieve, right? But with that lifestyle, I also visualize who I am. Because to achieve that lifestyle, what you guys have to remember, to achieve the specific lifestyle that you want, let's say that right now I used to live in a shitty basement before I started on this trading journey. Go from a basement, actually when I did start this trading journey, I was in Toronto, shitty basement, and I was visualizing Vancouver in like an amazing house, right? Now I got fragments of that. I got Vancouver, then I got an amazing house in Costa Rica, now I got a cool loft in Vancouver. But what I'm trying to get at is to go from a basement to an amazing house, right? That's a big jump. That is a big jump, that there's a lot of steps in between. Now it can happen pretty quickly. It can also take some time. And when it takes time, that means that you're potentially kind of jumping back and forth between your manifestations, right? And throughout the last few years, like obviously there was things that I wanted, things that I didn't want, and then things that I did want and then changed my mind on, right? You have to, the things that truly come true, they're the ones that you truly want. The other junk doesn't really matter, right? To me, the stuff that once you achieve the lifestyle that you can afford, to me, that doesn't matter anymore. Meaning that once you achieve a specific lifestyle, you have millions of dollars. You can do whatever the hell you want. So you want that nice house, you want to live in Costa Rica, the cars, well, at that point, pick whatever you want, right? Because it might take you 2 years, so you might be manifesting that Lamborghini instead. 2 years later, a cool Ferrari comes out and you prefer that. So focus on the lifestyle and the car. Driving a cool exotic, right? Unless you truly want a fucking Lamborghini, right? Then that you can manifest like this. That's only 200 grand or 300 grand or 400 grand or 2K a month, right? That's not a big manifestation. So you always have to also think about, when it comes to manifestation, what's the size of that manifestation? Because when it comes to an overall lifestyle, there's going to be a little bit more work to that than, okay, I just want a Lamborghini. I can live in a basement and drive a Lamborghini. You know what I mean? But I cannot live in a basement and achieve this baller lifestyle. I mean, you could, but it doesn't really make sense. So what I'm getting at is the first step to a successful manifestation is actually knowing what it is that you truly want with your life. Imagine yourself 2 years into the future. What are you doing, right? What is your dream life 2 years into the future? Not 10, not 20, not 30, right? That time will come. But in the near future, what is it that you truly want, right? What kind of life do you want to live? The cars, that comes with it. But what kind of life do you want to live? And with that, who are you as an individual? What are you doing, right? What are you doing for work? What inspires you? And specifically, that individual, what did that individual need to go through to achieve that? That's the key, right? What did that individual need to go through to achieve that? So who is that individual? Meaning you, but how much growth has she or he been through, right? Over that course of time to now go from a basement to live in an amazing house or have this cool lifestyle that you always dreamed of. There's an evolution within you that happens, right? So that's something that comes in step 2, the actual visualization. Step 1 is what you want. Step 2 is the actual visualization process, which we talked about in the previous lesson in meditation part 2, and we kind of talked a little bit about it throughout the previous lessons. And that's where you go into a meditative state if you want, right? I find that that's very optimal because you block out all the other noise. You can also do it in a normal visualization, sitting down before you go to bed, whatever, you know. But when you go into that visualization state, that deep visualization, and what I mean deep visualization is when you literally project yourself to that life, where when I start my manifestations, my visualization, I mean, a lot of times I start waking up, you know, where all of a sudden I will go into my meditative state. I will calm myself for like 10, 15 minutes, focus on my breath, you know, get myself in state, in trance. And then a lot of times I start waking up, you know, start my day. All of a sudden I just wake up and I am where I want to be, you know, in my mind. And then all the senses come with it. You know, what do you feel? The heat, the wind, you know, the noises, what do you hear? All of it. You know, you got to attach the feelings to that visualization, to that image that you're seeing, right? And some of you guys might be better at one thing than that and than the other, you know. Some of you guys might have a really hard time visualizing, so, but you feel, you know, so what does that heat feel like? What do you hear? You know, if you're thinking of living in a jungle in Costa Rica, well, there's a lot of different senses to it, to that than just the sight, you know, the sounds, the taste, the smell, you know, the heat, the wind, all of that, you know. So the different textures. So if you're walking in your house and you're visualizing your dream house, and you get to the kitchen and it's like these beautiful marble floors, as an example, you know, how do they feel? What about when you go into your patio deck with your amazing giant pool? What is it? Is it concrete? Is it nice, some kind of a wooden flooring? You know, how does that feel like? And what about the palm trees, the pool? How does that feel like? You know, and what is your emotional state at that point? How are you waking up? How are you feeling? So all of that kind of comes into the visualization process. The actual seeing is just one thing, you know, but the feelings, the emotions, that's even a bigger picture, right? So for some of you who are having a hard time visualize, there's other things, the sense, you know, that you can also focus on. But in my opinion, it's kind of trying to integrate all of that together, that now you're truly seeing that life, you know. But within that, that will slowly evolve over time. Meaning, the first time you decide to manifest something, once you make that decision, okay, I want to manifest this. You know, this is the life that I want. So this is kind of what I'm going to focus my manifestations on, right? And you thought really hard about it, and you decided, you made the decision. This is what I want to do. You know, once you make that decision, then that's where the visualization comes in, right? The meditation, the first step of the manifestation, the visualization, the feelings in the mind, right? And then you attach the emotions, the feelings to the actual picture that you're seeing. And that picture, within one day, it will just be a small fragment. A lot of times, if you're visualizing a lifestyle, within the first meditation that you do, you might only get to the bedroom. You know, like if you're like me and you start your manifestations waking up and starting that day, you know, that's how I choose to kind of begin. You guys can choose whichever way to begin your manifestations, you know, your visualization. I do it waking up because I build an image, you know, so I kind of start at the beginning of the day, sunrise is waking up. Okay, what does my room look like? You know, and I would visualize like amazing. If I was visualizing a paradise like Costa Rica as an example, it's kind of what it looked like. You know, my house in Costa Rica was very close to my manifestations, very close. And I'll give you guys some kind of things that I was actually thinking about that my house in Costa Rica did have. But I started off with waking up, and then nice big windows, sunrise is rising, you know, and the blinds are going up. That's how I woke up every single day in Costa Rica. And that's how I started my manifestations of Costa Rica, as an example. I began my manifestations waking up, blinds go up, and the sunrise is speaking, you know, with beautiful windows and an amazing ocean view in the jungle, right? And that was in my mind, and that's what actually ended up being. And then that's kind of how I started off. So a lot of times, depending on, you know, how fast you move or whatnot, how clear of an image you have, and how long you go into and how long you manifest within a meditation. It might be 20 minutes, it might be 30 minutes, 40 minutes, but you might just start out a room. And the next day, you get out of the room and you start walking down the hallway and you start to visualize, okay, this is how it looks like. You know, you might go into your office, your home office, you jump on the computer, you log in into your interactive brokers, and boom, $10 million in your trading account, and you have 2 positions running at about 100 or 200K, you know. So you see that, perfect, cool. You know, you go downstairs, you make your coffee. What does your kitchen look like? What are you drinking, a latte or an espresso? What's your wife doing? You know, your husband or your girlfriend or your kids? You know, are they running around the pool? Maybe somebody's jumping in. Maybe somebody's doing yoga. Maybe you're going to do yoga. You know, because it's the morning, so it's kind of like your routine. And if you are doing yoga, where are you doing that yoga? Are you doing it by the pool? Are you doing it on the beach? You know, do you have maybe a special yoga room? Right? So you can literally build this out. And then after yoga, what do? Do you jump on a phone call to talk business with somebody? Maybe you run some big corporation. Maybe you're just a baller trader and you enjoy life. So, you know, you bank your trades, you jump in your Ferrari, you go cruising up the mountains or to the yacht club, you jump in your yacht, you go to a private island, you have your lunch and you jump on the yacht and you come back home and you go jump on the charts and you finish off your day. Whatever it is that you do, I like to visualize days, within the manifestations. And it started off piece by piece. I was building piece by piece, specifically the house, the lifestyle. What does it look like? What am I doing every single day? A little bit more, 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 right? Until within a month, I'm going to have like a whole clear picture. If I do this every single day, as an example, I'm going to have a very clear picture of what it is I'm actually manifesting, right? Everything about it. The feelings, the sounds, and the images, the visuals, right? And even the details. Now, here's the cool thing. There's a lot of similarities with the Costa Rica house that I was living in, and the manifestations, the visualizations that I was doing, And one detail was in the pool. I wanted a pool that's big, long, that I can do laps in, but also that has a shallow end. Right, a shallow part of the pool where you can kind of put your lounge chairs on and they're like a little bit covered with water kind of thing. Those kind of cool wavy type of lounge chairs are just kind of chilling on a shallow edge of the pool. You guys know what I'm talking about? So yeah, I got the long pool and then you got like a shallow edge. I would visualize that and chilling in those kind of chairs in the water. That's exactly what my pool had without me even knowing, when I moved there. So the thing is, do the small details. There's a question here. How much details are good for visualizing when you haven't seen your to-be lifestyle yet? You just have a feeling of it. Well, you build it. That's what I mean. Like the first day that I started visualizing Costa Rica, it was just a room. Just a room. You can't expect to right away have a whole picture, right? At the beginning, you might just be driving up the coast in your Ferrari. It's an easy visualization, right? Now, you can go as deep as you want. That's what I mean. If you continue doing this every single day or a few times a week, and you keep on building on that image, on the lifestyle within your mind that you want to achieve, it will continue to build out, right? It will continue to build out. And you can put as much detail as you want into it. But it's important to integrate the visuals and the feelings and the emotions and the different scents, the wind and all of that, because that's even larger than seeing things. Seeing is just one part of this physical reality. You always got to remember, right? Your sight is just one part of this physical reality that you can see things, but the feelings and emotions come with it, right? And a lot of times they're even deeper than the sight, right? In intensity. So try to bring those into your actual visualizations. And again, you can do this walking around. You can do this for 5 minutes, a very quick one, kind of burst of inspiration, or you can sit down for 20, 30, 40 minutes and go really deep into it a few times a week or every single day or how often you want. Craig, do you write all this down as you build it in your mind so it's the same each day? No, I don't want it to be the same each day. I mean, you could, but to me, I don't need to write it down. It's already here. It's already there. I mean, so a lot of times I don't write it down. I might write down the initial step, okay, I want this lifestyle. That's kind of what I want to be doing. So I might write that down. The whole little details of what the house looks like, you could, there's been a lot of times where I did this. I went into meditation and I started focusing on the house, what it looked like, and I would be building it in my meditation, and then I would come out maybe 5 days later, and all of a sudden I'm like, I got like a key image, of what my house looks like, and then I'll jump on my iPad and draw it out, the finer details kind of thing, start putting it on paper. I do that, so that's totally up to you. That's totally up to you. Do what you want. Sure, write it down, draw it out. Like I drew out the kind of like a blueprint of the house a lot of the times, and the funny thing is, yeah, the floor plan of the house that I drew out was kind of an L shape, which is what my house in Costa Rica was, an L shape with kind of a pool to the side, and that's kind of exactly what I was drawing out, it's kind of interesting, that it just kind of comes together like that. There's another question here. Can these things change slightly, like the small details, but you keep the main vision the same? Do you visualize manifest every day to manifest Costa Rica? Yeah. The small details, yeah, they can change, that's totally fine. But that's up to you to decide, how much do they change? That's your choice. It's your manifestation. I can't tell you change it or not change it at the end of the day, Too many changes, then you're constantly fucking with your timeline, but the small little details here and there, it's like, it's always going to change. Smaller, finer things, they're always going to change. The things that really don't matter, that's why they're changing in the first place, right? Did you visually manifest every day to manifest Costa Rica? Almost every day. Almost every day. I mean, that's what my morning meditation is like. My morning meditation is seeing the life that I want to be living, so that when I start that day, I'm starting that day with the purpose, so that the decisions that I'm making within that day are bringing me closer to that manifestation, so in the morning, I try to do that when I'm manifesting something, so why not do it every day? I did it every single day, and Molly did it too. We teamed up together and we both did it every single day. Yeah, we might miss a day here and there. That's cool too. It doesn't have to be so strict. The whole meditation process does not have to be strict. With who would you share what you are wanting to manifest? Would it just be Molly? Who else needs to know? Do other people need to know? I mean, sure, but what you always have to remember, like Molly is really the only person that knew. We might tell somebody, yeah, we're looking to move to Costa Rica. Period. But Molly does talk to her family a lot, mainly her mother, and Molly does say things, and they do have conversations, and sometimes the family would jump on the manifestation, like them, and send us good vibes. Yeah, okay, I'll see you in Costa Rica, or I know that Molly and her mother were actually planning a visit to Costa Rica before we even moved to Costa Rica, so like you can team up on manifestations. The more people, the better, but also the people that truly kind of think will be helpful. So share it with whoever you want. I personally just share it with Molly, unless it's something that involves others, that others need to know. Then I'll share it with them too, so that they can jump on those manifestations and manifest their part. You know what I mean? I mean, this life is bigger than just you. A lot of these lifestyles are bigger than just you. So if you have a family, fuck, all of you jump on a manifestation, and visualize that dream life. It's a whole process. So this is the mind work, right? That's the mind work. But within that mind work, obviously it's the image, the lifestyle. But the key point is you, right? And I don't want you guys to forget that. Who are you as an individual in that lifestyle, in that life? Because that life is different than your current life right now. Meaning, like, the reality, let's just say that reality is different than your current reality, your current experience, or that experience is different than your current experience, meaning you are a little bit different as an individual. You probably went through catalysts and you have maybe more wisdom or whatnot, So you have to kind of channel that information as well, like who are you kind of as an individual, right? In that lifestyle, you also have to kind of reflect back on yourself. And the reason why I say that is you can visualize as much as you want, you can feel it, you can see it, you can taste it, smell it, you can bring all the sense into it and the feelings. But then you have to bring it into the physical. So if you know kind of who you are as an individual, right, in that life as an example, then the choices that you make right now, day to day, they should be mirroring that individual, right? The growth that you had. You should be bringing that wisdom to the now, to the present. So when you go into your meditation in the morning and you do your deep visualization, become that individual. Once you open your eyes, right, you're already infused with that energy, with that wisdom, right, with the feelings of what it is to be, what it feels like to be you in that reality, or experience. So when you open your eyes in the now and the present, that's who you are, period. There's no limiting beliefs. There's no FOMO, right? You're a boss trader. And those small little things that you were before you started your meditation, they just drift away because you're a fucking boss, or whatever the hell you want to see yourself as. And then you go on with your day. And then the decisions that you make throughout that day, you have choice points, right? And I'm going to come back to choice points, but that's the decision-making point, process. So I'll come back to choice points in a second. Right now, let's talk a little bit about the doing, right? So after you do your manifestations, you kind of know roughly who you need to be. Does that make sense, guys? Before I kind of move on, let me know in the chat real quick, and then I'll kind of move on to the actual bringing all of that into the physical, which is a very important process because you can live up here for as long as you want, but it doesn't mean that that reality that you're creating will actually reflect your physical. Cool. So it makes sense, right? So the doing, taking action, living each day as if the manifestation is complete, right? You always hear people say that live as if you already had it. Fake it till you make it. Everybody has different opinions on that. To me, yeah, fake it till you make it. Sure, cool, but there's still a process there, right? But it still works. Tony Robbins talks a lot about, he was giving examples in a lot of his programs of manifestation of, maybe some of you guys know that there was a couple who was manifesting winning a lottery, right? They were manifesting, visualizing and attaching the feelings to it. But they would tell everybody around them that they won the lottery, even though they didn't, right? They will tell everybody around them that they won the lottery, that they're millionaires or whatnot. And then eventually they won the lottery. And then they did it again. So that's one way of doing it. But I have a different way of doing it. Yeah, I feel it. I know who I am, and I have that confidence of that individual, as an example. Will I tell people, okay, I'm a hedge fund owner, even though I don't have a hedge fund? Probably not, because I know that there's still a process to it. It's the journey to it. And that's the beautiful part, is the journey, right? Is actually taking that visualization and creating it. You create it via actions that you do in this physical reality, right? So what I typically do is I take action. And what I mean by that is I could have sat in Costa Rica for years, pondered on the idea of what it is that I wanted to do, right? For a very long time. But at some point you have to take action. And it might take you a second to make that decision. It might take you months to make that decision. It might take you years to make that decision, to start doing. Same thing, like as an example of Costa Rica, right? We were planning on moving to Costa Rica January 2020, roughly, and here we are, already went to Costa Rica, spent a year in Costa Rica, came back, and it's not even 2020 yet. That's because as you start doing this in-depth manifestation, you're gonna have things that come into your life all of a sudden, because now you're living that, you are that individual. So now you did toss those ideas, toss that visual into the quantum field, and that's bringing it back to you now. And now you have to make decisions in this physical that connect that manifestation. So I told you guys about it. Molly was going to go to Bali, Indonesia to do her yoga teacher training. She was going to spend a month in Bali. But then an idea just came in, and we were like, this is as we were doing our visualizations, right? An idea came to mind, and we started chatting, and all of a sudden we're like, I think maybe we saw a photo on Instagram, of somebody doing yoga in Costa Rica, and that was a trigger, right? I remember at this point we were just sitting on the couch watching TV, and maybe I was just probably scrolling through Insta, or Molly was, or something. And then all of a sudden we're like, well, why don't you just do your yoga teacher training in Costa Rica? That way we can go, scope it out, see what it's like, I can go with her, look for homes, that kind of thing, And it was just that kind of idea at that point, that she's gonna go instead of Bali, Indonesia, because we don't really have a connection with that place. So instead of that, why don't you just go do your yoga teacher training in Costa Rica? And I'll come with you, and as you're doing your training, I'll just kind of drive around the country, look for homes, get a feel for it, that kind of thing. So we made that decision all of a sudden, and that was just a trigger. Like somehow it was something that we just saw, and all of a sudden it sparked the trigger. So we took action immediately, right? Started looking, okay, let's see if there's any good yoga schools in Costa Rica. And yeah, we found some. And then we paid for the course, and then Molly, and then yeah, we had our date, April. All of a sudden, April 2018, we're not moving to Costa Rica, but Molly's doing her training in Costa Rica, and I'll joining with her, right? So that's kind of the first major decision that we made. And then we still continued on our visualization and just doing our thing. And at that point, April 2018, we're going to be just testing out Costa Rica. We're just going to drive around, see what's up, kind of thing. And because, yeah, we're moving like 2019, 2020, right? That was the idea. That's why, time doesn't really matter, because what happened a couple months after that, it was again a decision, that an idea that came to mind. It was pretty simple. And it was like, well, you're going to Costa Rica. We don't care for this life anymore, right? We want to change. We want a different lifestyle now, not 2 years from now. So since you're already going to Costa Rica, since I'm already going to Costa Rica, we already have our tickets booked, right? We have everything planned. This was December. So why don't we just move to Costa Rica at that point? Why don't we just go there? So we ended up changing our tickets a week earlier, moving our tickets a week earlier before Molly's training. And we moved to Costa Rica at that point. So those visualizations that you do, you have to bring them to the physical. And the beauty is, those were just ideas that we acted on, that came into our minds. But we could have sat there and, yeah, you're already committed to Bali, because she did, you're already committed to Bali, so just go to Bali. Don't complicate things. Don't make unnecessary things if you don't have to. You could have thought that way, Same thing when December came and we made the decision to move to Costa Rica at that point, not in 2019 or 2020, but then, in April 2018. We could have sat on that decision and, but it's so soon, it's only a couple months away. How are we going to find a place? Like, we got to do all this stuff. You got to prepare, you got to sell everything, you got to do, there's this whole process. How are you going to do all of this in just a couple months? So we could have focused on that and then made the decision, that's too early. Let's just stick to the original plan of you going there and driving around the country and seeing what there is. Could have focused on that. And we could have chose that path instead, right? And that path instead would have manifested itself in 2019, 2020. But we chose to make the decision, no, let's just fucking go. And that's how you bend time. You don't need to waste a year or 2 years or 3 years or 4 years by postponing these decisions because this is what you planned for. You planned 2019 or 2020 or 21, right? When you start creating that image in your mind, what's going to happen is you will have shitload of choices, right? That all of a sudden come into your life via an individual, something that you see that creates a catalyst, something that happens to your life, something that somebody tells you. Somebody maybe brings you an idea, maybe somebody wants to join on a business together, maybe somebody gives you $1 million to trade. You just don't know how that will come into existence, into physical reality, right? So what you need to do is you need to be aware of those decisions that you're making. So with those decisions that we had to make, what we ended up doing, thinking about, well, become that individual, that you're visualizing, right? Since you're kind of, as you finish your meditation, you become that individual and you kind of go with your day as it's already kind of done. You are that person. Well, now I have a decision to make. So I think about it for a second. Okay, what does this decision look like? What does this decision look like? Which one brings me closer to my manifestation? Yeah, fuck, moving to Costa Rica now in April, not in 2019. So if I have the option to move now, yes, I'm choosing that because that's bringing me closer to my manifestation. That's putting me there right now. You know what I mean? So you have to take just a moment and really connect with, okay, here's one choice, one potential timeline. I go to Costa Rica and just scope things out and then I'll potentially move later. Or we just go to Costa Rica and move there a week earlier instead. What does that look like? Well, that puts me right there. That's already created. It's already done. And that was the second decision that we had to make. It was only 2 choices in. 2 choices in. First choice all of a sudden was, okay, fuck Bali, do your training in Costa Rica. Second choice, why don't we just move there now? At the end of the day, that's all it was. We were manifesting for days and days and days and days and days. It was just those 2 decisions. Now they were spread across a few months, but that's the thing. If you're not aware, I might have missed some catalysts. I might have missed some signals here and there. And that's where that initial awareness comes into, that you're building in your meditations, right? Because you need to be aware of what's going on in your life too, right? All the decisions, all the options that you have, right? Every single decision that you have gives you a certain timeline, So the first step is obviously making that decision. Step number 2 is creating it in your mind. Step number 3 is actually taking action, right? Bringing that manifestation into the physical with the actions that you make. Becoming that individual, right, in the physical. It's extremely important. A lot of people miss that step. They just visualize and then they continue with their shady mindset. And that's how is that going to give you your manifestation? How is that going to present it to you in your physical? It's not. right? Because you still have your shitty fucking attitude, as an example, whatever it is. Does that make sense? Next step is surrendering. Surrendering to the options, to the opportunities that are around you. You know, somebody says, please elaborate on the shady attitude. I have a topic on that right at the end, so I'll chat about it in a second. But the surrendering, that's kind of the next thing, right? Surrendering to the ideas, right? So becoming aware of them and the surrendering, such as the choice points. Okay, move to Costa Rica now or move to Costa Rica later, right? Those choice points. Surrendering to, okay, somebody comes into your life, an individual all of a sudden messages you, or you meet somebody. Maybe it's a loved one, you know, or whatnot. Some kind of opportunity comes up. Instead of you saying, well, this opportunity, yeah, it's cool, but I'm on this path, you know, this is not at the right moment right now. I'm on this path. But what if this opportunity that somebody just brought to you is actually going to bring you closer to your manifestation than this path? Because what you got to remember is you started visualizing something and you started becoming that within you. That's reflected into the physical and mirrored back to you. And when it's mirrored back to you, so you probably know this, when you want a car, you all of a sudden start seeing that car everywhere. You know, when you're frustrated that you hit a red, all of a sudden you'll be hitting reds all the time. Everybody experienced this, right? That's the mirroring effect, right? It's the same thing. So that opportunity that just came in, that's the mirroring effect. You started visualizing, manifesting something. Now there's this opportunity that's coming in, right? So instead of you pushing that opportunity aside because fuck, you're on this path, this is how I laid it out on paper, so I got to follow this path. But this opportunity that just came in, that's the universe or this field surround us, tossing this opportunity on us because, hey, if you take this option, that might actually bring you closer to your manifestation. So don't be so easy to just toss it away, right? Or somebody comes into your life, don't be so quick to just toss it away, right? Because that might be a shortcut. You know, that if you choose this option of pursuing this potential business or this idea or whatever, maybe it's a life partner that you need, right? And then together you guys start manifesting. Who knows? But be open. And that's the thing, that's where the surrendering comes in, because you can be so resistant, right, to this opportunity. You can say, this is not in my field, I never studied this, you know, it's going to be so hard. This is what I planned for, right? I know that this is going to get me there in 2 years or 3 years, but fuck, this might get you there in 3 months, as an example, right? And it can be any opportunity. Just the key is everybody's different, and everybody here in this room, who's watching this lesson, right? Everybody has different manifestations, different lifestyles, different things that you guys want to achieve, right? And there's unlimited number of options out there. And if you miss one, that's okay. It will present itself again. You know, that's the beauty of it. As long as you stay focused on that, whatever it is that you're manifesting, the universe is going to continue bringing it to you. That's where that awareness comes in. That's where that surrendering comes in, and actually accepting, right, that option, or at least thinking about it for a second, and then deciding, okay, is this bring me closer to my manifestation or not, right? And making that decision at least. You don't have to surrender and do everything. You still have choices, right? So you can take a second or a day or 2 days or a week or whatnot and jump into your meditation and now meditate on this opportunity and meditate on this opportunity. How does this timeline look like? How does this timeline look like? And which timeline brings you closer to your dream lifestyle, the lifestyle that you're manifesting? Choose that option, right? Don't be resistant to opportunities. And that's where the surrendering comes in. So I got a couple questions here. As she says, everyone can dream, but not everyone sets their intention to motion. Fear of the first step. Exactly. But it's so easy, man. As soon as you make that decision, take that first step, it's already done. It's already done. It's sometimes you can be so sometimes too much thinking is just too much. Intellectual. Sometimes you can be so intellectual and you want to know all the answers and whatever. Sometimes you just have to just take the fucking step. That's it. Stop thinking, just go. Just do it. Because you can think for months and come to the same conclusion. Why not just do it now? You know what I mean? Take the action, take the step. Sam, I'll chat about the shady attitude a little bit later in. But your question here, how can one differentiate between surrendering and taking what comes versus shiny ball syndrome? Where shiny ball syndrome is, you commit to this path and then, oh fuck, well this looks better, I'll take this. Well, all of a sudden this looks better and I do this. In a way, that's not you, you're not manifesting. It's you make a decision, move with it, go with it, and then eventually another decision might come in. But no, okay, I tried this trading style, I do it for a few months, oh, okay, it's not working. I tried this trading style, I do it for a few months, oh fuck, it's not working. Then I do this, then I do this, then I do this, then I do this. But when are you fucking learning? When are you actually gonna learn, right? It's not just a couple months to learn a skill like that. It might take longer. You have to commit. So shiny ball syndrome is, as an example, I have an example of that when it comes to Costa Rica. I started off visualizing Bahamas. Then, okay, well, Cayman Islands looks cool. Then I started visualizing Cayman Islands. And then I found this really cool house in Turks and Caicos. Then I started visualizing Turks and Caicos. And I stayed on Turks and Caicos for quite some time. And then all of a sudden, I saw Belize. And I started looking into Belize, and I found a cool property in Belize, and I came this close to putting a down payment on a house in Belize. I remember this. It was so cool because Molly and I were very close to putting a down payment in Belize. And then we flew to Costa Rica for a trip, just for a visit, random visit. We flew to Costa Rica, and when we came back, we were flying back and we were connecting at an airport. And we met a girl there at the airport who, it was late, it was kind of like 1 a.m. at night, so there weren't many people around and it was kind of sketchy. So she just kind of ended up chilling with us. And she just came from Belize. And then she told us that her friends were just killed, kidnapped, well, stopped in the middle of the road and gunned down, and their stuff were stolen. And we were about to put a down payment in a house in Belize, and all of a sudden we're like, fuck that. I love Costa Rica. Costa Rica feels good. So all of a sudden it was like, that was a catalyst. But if I didn't meet that person, right? If I didn't think about it for a second, if first of all, if I didn't see that person, well, we would be in Belize, right? But at the same time, that person was there for a reason. The person was there for a reason because that was not the most optimal timeline. It's the difference, right? You can be visual, you can know that you want something, but you still may not be sure where, so you might be jumping back and forth, and that's the shiny ball syndrome. When it comes to trading, at some point you have to commit, right? Just like when you're deciding in high school which career you want to go. Okay, I want to be a firefighter, I want to be a police officer, I want to be a doctor, I want to be a lawyer. What the fuck do you want? Pick. At some point you have to pick. And that's where the shiny ball syndrome comes in, right? So at some point you have to make the decision. For me, it was, okay, Bahamas, Cayman Islands, Turks and Caicos, they're all so cool, so just bouncing back and forth, and Belize came in, but there is an optimal timeline, right? And all of a sudden, when we were very close to committing to Belize, oh fuck, hey, there's this random chick that we met at the airport, and her parents have a house in Belize, and she's like, it's so dangerous there, I wouldn't even drive around, and like my friends, this just happened, and we're like, okay. We just came from Costa Rica, and we fell in love with Costa Rica, you know. And just like this, we made the decision, okay, we're not moving to Belize. Fuck it, doesn't feel right anymore, you know. And it never really did. The thing is, it never really did. It never felt right from the beginning, you know. It just wasn't what we truly wanted. The house that we're going to put a down payment on wasn't exactly what we wanted, you know, so it wasn't the most optimal timeline. So that's where you got to surrender to life. And I could have been resistant and be like, yeah, you know, but that just happens to random individuals and blah, 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 and it'll be fine. Let's just fucking go to Belize. And then my life would have been totally different, you know. But that's again where you have to kind of surrender and be aware of what's happening around and making good decisions, you know. So that's kind of like the surrendering, just knowing that when you start this manifestation process, all of a sudden the world around you will be bending in your favor, you know, and it will be presenting things that will be bringing you closer to that manifestation. But you still have a choice to make. Do I take this option or do I not? Do I hang out with this individual that just invited me for dinner, or do I fuck it, you know? But that individual who just invited you to dinner or whatever that you just met in the networking thing, who knows, that might be your fucking soulmate. Surrender, you know, to the opportunities, to the ideas. Because when you start visualizing something, manifesting something, it will be presented to you. But you still have to take the options, the steps, the actions. You still have to do, right? But that's where the awareness comes in. That's where the surrendering comes in. That's where the visualization comes in, right? All of a sudden now you have options, and you will see that in your life. And that brings you to the choice points. The choice points are extremely important because you have choice points all the time, but there's very key choice points, like these little catalysts, these individuals that make you think about it. Because now choice one gives you literally this timeline, choice two gives you this timeline. One of them is optimal. One of them is going to get you there closer, you know, or whatnot. It just might be an optimal option. So you have to just spend some time and do what feels right. Not what feels easy, what feels right. Because easy and right is totally different. Easy may not be the most optimal option, because to become that individual that you need to, that you are in that life, gotta think about it. To become that individual that you are in that life, did you get there by taking the easy choice? Or did you get there by taking this choice that makes you step out of your comfort zone a little bit? Because you got to think about it, right? If you take the easy choice, well, is that what your current self thinks is better, or is that what your future self thinks is better? Because if it's your current self, you take this option, sure, okay, you'll be living the same life. You took the easy path. You don't want your manifestation. You're not bringing it into the physical. You're taking the easy option. You know, with the easy option, there may not be growth or whatnot. If you take the hard part, you might learn something faster. Versus if you take the easy option, it might take you a year, 2 years longer till you learn the lesson that you're supposed to learn. Because you'll have to remember to truly bring those things that you manifest into the physical. You're going to have catalysts, you're going to have lessons, and you have to step out of your comfort zone and actually do the work, because you have to truly become that individual, and you have to build that life in the physical, right? The options will be given, the choices will be given, the opportunities will be given, right? And then you still have to make the decision of what is right, what is the most optimal timeline, and that's the choice point. And the thing is, the beauty is, this is where things get really interesting, right? Because you have option one, you have option two. And now I can think back to the option in December 2017 when Molly and I decided to move to Costa Rica. We had one option, two options: move or move later. And I can go into meditation now. I can think, it's already in my mind. I know what the lifestyle looks like of the individual who chose later, because that thought form already exists. I can connect with that thought form and see what it looks like if I actually choose it. That information will come in. That's where that whole awareness process is so important in your meditation, and opening up and receiving. That second lesson that we did last time, meditation part 2, is extremely important, the receiving, right? Because you can truly connect with that thought form and truly see what your life looks like if you chose that option versus what your life looks like if you chose this option. But even if you choose, let's say you chose this option, right? And it's a little bit slow, right? Because it was an easy path, so it's a little bit slow and it's comfortable, whatnot. But if you're still curious, right, is this the right choice? You can still connect with that other thought form, and you can change your decision at any point, right? Because that other thought form, that idea already is already there. You already had the choice, right? And chances are you can still take this choice even though you chose the wrong timeline. Or the timeline, there's not wrong or right, it's just maybe that timeline is not the most optimal, right? And you realized it. You took it and you're there for 2 months, you're living that lifestyle for 2 months, and you realize, you know what? This is actually not the most optimal. And you can connect with that other thought form and still make a change in your decision. Right? You have free will. You can do whatever the fuck you want. Always remember that, right? One is not right or wrong. There's just one that might be more optimal than the other. Either one would have gotten me to Costa Rica if I truly wanted to be in Costa Rica. One was just more optimal and brought me there a couple years earlier than the other one, right? And the thing is, I could have made that decision in September and not December. When Molly decided to go do her yoga teacher training in Costa Rica instead of Bali, at that point we could have made the decision to move to Costa Rica. But we didn't. We just made the decision to, okay, do your training in Costa Rica. Just a little bit of a different switch. Just do your training, we'll still do the same thing, still the same timeline. Still gonna move somewhere in 2019, 2020, But we could have made a decision at that point. Well, let's just fucking move. But it wouldn't really matter. It wouldn't have changed much because it would have still been April 2018, But we didn't make the decision, so it came back again in December, right? And December was kind of like the last choice. If I did not make that decision in December, I would have to go to Costa Rica with option 2. Because by that idea all of a sudden coming back in December, now I had enough time to find a house, to figure things out, before April, which was 3 months really, just 3 months. So that was just perfect amount of time to make that move. So even though you might be taking steps closer to your timeline, closer to your manifestation, still be open to all those ideas and opportunities that come in, and always remember that you have choice, you have free will, right? And you can always connect back with that lifestyle, with that individual, and decide what brings you closer, right? What is the most optimal? What feels right? The thing is, you have to bring them back to the physical, right? And that's how you do it, by making decisions. By making the decisions in the physical, by choosing, right? Because when you make that decision, you choose to bring it to the physical, right? In December, when I made the decision, okay, let's move to Costa Rica, let's just fucking move now. I made the decision at that point to bring Costa Rica to the physical. At that point, I made that decision. And you guys will have those options too. Many of them. but you got to be willing to do the work. You got to be willing to make those decisions. And we could have stressed about it because 3 months may seem like it's not enough. It's plenty of fucking time. So the choice points, key, important. I'm going to summarize everything at the end, but let's chat a little bit about positive versus negative manifestations. Right, so positive versus negative manifestations. And you can, the best example of this is you can visualize all you want, you can meditate all you want, but once you finish that meditation, if you're not bringing anything to the physical, if you're just continuing on that same path of depression because you hate your 9 to 5 and limiting beliefs, the lack of wealth, lack of abundance, just the same psychology, same mindset, well, what are you manifesting? More depression, more lack of abundance, you know, that's what you're manifesting because that's who you are inside. That's why it's key to become that person that you're manifesting, right? Because you have to be the living example, the physical example, because you are making the decision to bring that into the physical. And if you don't become that individual, if you choose to continue with your shitty attitude, that's what I meant by shitty attitude, right? The attitude of comfort, of easiness, of, you know, and with your other, and continue with your limiting beliefs or whatnot, if you choose not to solve them, if you choose not to work through them, right, then that's what you're creating, isn't it? Because that's who you are inside, and that's, if that's what you feel, then that's what you're again projecting to the field, and that's what is being mirrored back to you. More depression, more hatred, more whatever, you know, just more of who you are. So that's why it's so important to, when you go into meditation, when you finish your meditation, to bring that into the physical, that experience, that you know, to fill yourself with those emotions, with those feelings, and with that wisdom. That's important. The wisdom is an important one. The wisdom of that individual 2 years into the future, because you can bring that wisdom into your choice points, into your decision making. Connect it all together, right? But that's the positive versus negative manifestations. Even though you're doing your visualizations and all of that, but in your day-to-day, you're still your old you, you know, the old you with limiting beliefs and the lack mindset and all of the baggage or whatnot that you're now willing to solve, that you're now willing to work through. Remember, you have to become that person. And to become that person, you have to work through some shit. You have to step out of your comfort zone, right? You have to make choices. If you're depressed, fix it. Change your routine. Do something that inspires you, right? Fix it. Do the work that comes with it. And anything else that you're feeling, fix it. You're the decision maker at the end of the day, right? And what you feel within is what's presented to you outside in the physical. So you can manifest negativity. You can manifest more of what you don't want because that's who you are. Because that's what's within you. You can manifest more of that shitty attitude. So that's why it's so important to become. It's like you put, all of a sudden you just put on a new t-shirt, you know, the t-shirt of that individual from 2 years into the future. That wisdom, you bring it with you right now into the physical, into all the decisions that you're making, right? And that brings me to the last point. Learn from catalysts, the triggers. Pick something up from the catalysts and the triggers. And a catalyst might be, you know, all of a sudden you got sick. You were You were so focused on something, you're working, and this individual came to you and said something, and then you just pushed him aside and you just continue doing, and he came again and asked you, and you just pushed it aside and you continue doing, right? There's a catalyst there. There's this individual or this somebody or whatever. There's something there that's a catalyst, and you're just trying to push it aside, because you're so focused on whatever it is that you're doing. But this catalyst might be key. That idea that individual might bring might be key, but at the same time, it might come in a different form. You might experience something that's a negative effect. Maybe it was a negative experience, maybe some kind of charge, some kind of emotion, maybe something happened, maybe somebody passed away, maybe you got dumped, or whatnot. Something happened in your life and you have the choice. That's a catalyst. That was a catalyst. And now that catalyst gave you the choice point to change, to learn from that experience, right? And it's when you learn from the catalyst, that's when you grow, right? That's when you grow as an individual, as a being. You learn, right? So you evolve, you change, because you make the choice to, okay, I'm not going to live my life this way. This is who I am now. Say at the same time, I talked at the beginning of this masterclass, and I mentioned that in the Buddhist or Zen culture, they believe that thoughts and emotions, if they're not resolved, will turn themselves, become physical via an illness. So if you experience some kind of a negative emotion, negative charge, and you don't work through it, you don't figure it out, you don't learn from it, all of a sudden you don't release that charge, that negative emotion or whatever it is, it might be hooked. It will get hooked somewhere into your physical field, into your physical body, right? It will connect itself somewhere, and eventually, if you don't solve it, it will turn itself into a disease, into a physical disease, right? And that's your choice point. Thing is, there's so many cases of people instantly getting rid of disease by that process that we talked about in the previous lessons, right? Healing, bringing that healing energy in and clearing it and visualizing like it's gone. There's nothing there. It's just this like beautiful energy came in and just washed it out, right? And then they also went and worked back through those emotions, right? Found the catalyst and then reframed it, right? Changed the belief systems around it. And all of a sudden, disease is gone. So the catalyst, right? That catalyst happened a long time ago and you kind of left it behind, and that emotion got stored within you, created disease or whatnot. If you learn from the catalyst a long time ago, then all of a sudden you made a lesson and you've evolved as an individual. You've grown 6 years ago, not instead of now, or a few months ago instead of now, because you chose back then when the catalyst actually happened to make the change, rather than carry it with you, the baggage, and then finally making a change when you have to because you have disease, because you carried it for so long. There's so many cases of this, guys. Thousands, millions even, because it's with everybody. So that's where that reflective meditation comes in at the end of the day, right? So now we're tying it all together. So in the morning we manifest, throughout the day we become, and we make the choices that bring us closer. At the end of the day, we reflect on the choices that we've made, on the catalysts that we had, on the charges that we had, and we learn and we tweak and we fine tune. And the next day we make it better. Step by step, day by day, action by action, you're creating what's within you, right? So if you do this process, manifest, become, reflect, fine-tune, manifest, become, reflect, fine-tune, manifest, become, reflect, fine-tune, all of a sudden you just live in that life because you're in this beautiful groove of creating your manifestations. And that's putting it all together. That's the whole process. What do you guys think? Does it make sense? I'm going to summarize all of that in just a couple words, but that is key. That's the whole process. Simple as fuck, literally, you know, but it took forever to figure out. It took forever, you know, but it's so simple. But even when you think about the book, The Secret, it just tells you visualize and become. But how do you visualize? How do you become? Okay, put a picture on the vision board. Look at it every single day. It's so basic. This is basic too, but it's so much more evolved, so much more advanced. But when you get in the groove and you do the work, it's simple, right? But it takes much more work than what The Secret tells you to do. That's why a lot of people with the book, The Secret, they didn't see the results. Because yeah, you can see that image, you can put it on your vision board, but you have to become. And that's the missing part, right? It's the whole integration of all of that. Everything that we have learned so far this lesson is the whole integration. And we're going to move on. In the last lesson, we're going to be talking about masterhood. It's going to even build on this a little bit more. So just to quickly summarize, right? You guys can write it down for yourself. Step 1, decide what it is that you want. You don't have to make concrete decisions with the timeline. Okay, I'm going to do this is how I'm going to get there. You can if you want, but remember, you're still going to have choice points. And even though you make that perfect timeline step by step, it might not be the most optimal. You know, that's where those choice points come in. But the first step is actually making that decision, not bouncing around. Costa Rica, decision was made. You know, and before that I was bouncing around. So once you make that decision, then you manifest via the mind, the visualization, the meditation, right? So you visualize a few times a week, every single day, you know. But when you visualize, the more you do it, the more often you do it, you will just build that lifestyle out. And it can be small at first, right? Just one room as an example. If you're visualizing your house, just one room, and then build it out day by day, week by week, month by month. It will just evolve into this life within your mind. You know, this individual that you have to become is within your mind. So that's step 2, the meditation part of it, right? The visual, the feeling, the emotions that come with it, right? And actually bringing the step 3 is bringing it, becoming that individual when you open your eyes, right? Become that individual. And if at any point of the day you get flustered or whatever, you can always connect. Close your eyes for a second and connect with your higher self or with that individual from 2 years into the future. It's like this, man. You know, you get flustered, all of a sudden close your eyes and, okay, I'm good now. That's it. I do this all the time, you know? So that was the next step, become. Step after that is the doing, right? It's the doing. It's doing the work that you need to do. And then the surrendering that comes with it. You know, when you become aware, right? That's already happened. We're already aware, you know. The surrendering is being open to all those opportunities that all of a sudden the field is bringing to you, the quantum field is bringing to you, because that's who you are within. Within, you're this baller trader, right? You have the confidence, you have the attitude, you have the wisdom, right? So the field, the quantum field will reflect that. And at the same time, we'll be bringing you catalysts and options so that you truly become that individual and have that lifestyle. And that's where all of a sudden the choice points come in, right? All of a sudden you can stay on that timeline that you planned out at the beginning, right? But you still have different opportunities that come in, and you still have to think about them. You have to surrender and actually give them a thought, and then choose which timeline is more optimal. The one that I initially planned for, or this one that was just presented now? Because you got to remember, it was presented for a reason. Otherwise, it wouldn't be here. This option wouldn't be here all of a sudden. This option was presented to you for a reason. This person came into your life for a reason, right? Nothing's unnecessary. Everything happens for a reason. And when you reflect on that, when you kind of connect with that option, you might decide this is actually more optimal. When you connect with that higher self, with that lifestyle, right? When you're making that decision and you're connecting with that individual 2 years into the future, what brings you closer? A or B? The previous timeline or the current timeline? And make the decision, make the choice, right? And do that over and over and over and over and over again, because every single choice that you make brings you potentially closer, right, to that lifestyle. And be cautious of negative manifestations, right? That's where you can manifest all you want, but if within you still have your old attitude, your old comfort zones, and you're not willing to step out and become that person, well, then your manifestations won't happen, or you will be delaying them. They could happen, but you'll be delaying them and delaying them and delaying them till you make the fucking decision to become that individual and do the fucking work, right? And then the last step is just to learn from catalysts, because when you learn from catalysts, then you grow as a being, you grow as an individual, you have now wisdom, more wisdom behind you, you know, instead of carrying that little bag of emotions. Deal with them. That's the reflective meditation at the end of the day. And it's such a beautiful cycle, you know, from sunrise to sunset. You can live how can I say that? Yeah, simply, you can be making the options. Fuck, I can't connect it. But what I'm trying to say is, from the morning meditation till you fall asleep, you know, you can choose to live your day as if you were already that individual, or you can live your day as the old you, the present you, the current you, you know, who's in the basement and living with his parents, or is depressed or whatnot, you know, not inspired, blah, 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 has negative mindsets, limiting beliefs, and all of that. Or you can choose to evolve and learn from catalysts and grow as a being, you know, and get that experience and that wisdom, and then reflect on it at the end of the day and then integrate. That is it. Try it out, guys. Do it for the next year. You'll see your life change. And I say the next year because just continue doing it. You have to continue doing it. You can't just do one day and then that's it. You got to continue doing it. This has to become a daily thing. At least the meditations don't have to, but you being on that right path, the choices that you make, that's a daily thing. You know what I mean? So you truly have to become that person within your day, within your daily life, in the now. Because if you live in the past, if you don't change, then you're not going to manifest it. You'll just be manifesting the old thing, the lack of abundance. You'll just continue manifesting lack of abundance, as an example. that is it, guys. That is it. Alex just wrote down the points. I'm gonna screen share them here, just so for those who are watching the replay, you guys can see. One second, guys. Technical difficulties. For some reason I couldn't share my note-taking app, but here it is. This is what Alex wrote down, just a quick summary in case you guys did not write it down. So it's just a quick summary right here. You guys can read it. For those who are live, take a quick pause and jot it down if you want. All right, let me see what questions you guys have. Let's take 5 minutes, answer some questions, and then we'll wrap it up. Craig says, this has been mind-altering. The plan we all have now from this webinar to become what we want to be in the near future is so positive. Best webinar yet. Epic. Love it, love it, love it. Like I said, it's a simple process, guys. It seems complicated, right? But it's not complicated, but it takes work. It takes work. You got to make decisions. And the decisions are often the hardest thing. But we make them hard. They don't have to be hard. You can just decide. You just decide. You just do. At the end of the day, you just do, right? And always remember that you can choose to have something happen over a period of 5 years, or you can just do, period. You can just do, instead of focusing on the 5 years, just do the work now. And that's how all of a sudden you start seeing your manifestations coming to life immediately, not 5 years later, So make the decisions, make the hard decisions, the choices, reflect on them, and become. Shimon says, I know it might sound weird, but the more I understand what all your thoughts come from, the way you think, the more I feel I don't need this education. What's more, I don't need anything else because I already have everything that is required for everything that I want to do. Amazing. It is. It is. Because at some point you realize, that's the beauty of it. At some point you realize that, yeah, all of this is already here within. This is just a reminder, at that point, I'm just a reminder. I might give you a different perspective here and there, but eventually, yeah. Eventually, I feel like that too. Like a lot of the books that I read and all of that, I'm like, I know this stuff. I know it, But there's a difference. You can know and not do, and you can know and do. You can know it all. You can know it all. You can still make the wrong fucking decisions. You can know how to be the best technical analyst you can be, but still trade on FOMO. You have to be. You have to do. You have to do the work, right? Just a reminder at this point. Because you gotta remember, I'm just a messenger. You're the ones that gotta do the work. You're the ones that gotta make the decisions, right? So take whatever you can from this webinar and from this, integrate in some kind of way. But at the end of it all, it's you who's making those decisions. But yeah, for sure, at some point, I love that feeling that you wrote down. I know I'm gonna read it again. I know it might sound weird, but the more I understand what all your thoughts come from, the way you think, the more I feel I don't need this education. What's more, I don't need anything else because I already have everything that is required for everything that I want to do. And that's the beauty of it all, right? Is that when you realize that, when you truly realize that, but you also do the work, then you realize that because everything's already present, you already have the wisdom, the knowledge, right? You can make the decision to act on that wisdom and knowledge now. A lot of people, myself included, you guys, you know, we tend to delay things unnecessarily. We might have everything that we require, but we still tend to delay things because of comfort zones and limiting beliefs, even though we have the proper mindset, or at least we believe we have a proper mindset, but we do not want to do the work. We know how to do the work, but we do not want to do the work. And that's just becoming too intellectual. That's just thinking too much. Just at the end of the day, just do, act on what it is that you know. Become that person. You know, so the next time you have a string of losses and there's a lesson there, learn from it, you know, and move on instead of carrying that little bag for years. And from trading, from any catalyst that has happened in your life, we tend to carry the little bag. And that's why that reflective meditation at the end of the day is important, right? It's important because it gives you the choice point at the end of the day to decide, okay, am I going to carry that baggage from the day that I've experienced, or am I going to actually ponder on it, reflect on it, find a lesson, learn, tweak, evolve, and the next day move on, instead of carrying that little bag that eventually grows bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger for years. Eventually you'll be fucking Santa Claus, you know, carrying a bag, massive bag of emotions. Anyway, that is it from me. Let me know if you guys have any questions, comments. Let me know if you enjoyed this. Let me know if you're confused with anything or whatnot. But yeah, let me know if you have any questions, but also what you think about this, all of this, and how you feel. Shimon, this one thing that you helped me realize just made my head explode. Life-changing, epic, love it, my man. Perfect, guys. Good stuff, good stuff, good stuff. So I'm gonna wrap it up. It's been about an hour and 30 minutes or so. So we're gonna wrap it up. Next lesson, we're doing lesson number 7. We're gonna be talking a little bit more about the science, right? So lesson number 7 will be a little bit more about the quantum laws and such. And then lesson number 8, it's masterhood, right? It's everything, putting it all together. In this lesson, we've put almost everything together, right? Masterhood, it'll just build on this lesson a little bit more. And you might want to listen to this whenever you have to, whenever you want, you know? But yeah, that was a good one. I went on a long rant there, but that was a good lesson. I enjoyed this one myself a lot. So that's it, guys. I don't see any other questions. So that's it. If any questions come in for those who are attending live or whatnot, obviously drop them in. I'll answer them later in the next lessons. But this information here is gold. At least it is for me, you know. So I know 100% confident that there's a shit ton of value here if you actually do the work, you know, and you will see your life change immediately. That's the beauty of this all, is it will be immediate. You will notice the changes immediately if you just follow this little routine. The masterhood is cool. The masterhood is optimizing this little routine. So that's going to be a cool lesson. That's the optimization of everything that we have learned thus far. So that's it, guys. Take care. Have an awesome day, night, morning, evening, wherever you guys are in the world. Peace out. Enjoy. Be calm. And I'll chat to you guys another day. Take care.